afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for joining me for yet another Facebook live stream being broadcast from Brussels, from the recording studio here in the European Union Parliament. Now, if you're like myself, you're probably reeling from what happened last week in terms of that awful Strasbourg meeting, and quite frankly, watching the almost what's become a ritual humiliation of not only our Prime Minister, but also of the United Kingdom's Brexit negotiations. And somewhat, I would say, unsurprisingly, lots of you out there are asking me questions about the Chequers deal, about the state of Brexit negotiations, and about, quite frankly, what the current feeling is and atmosphere here is in the Parliament. Now, Leon Hill, you've asked, what are the feelings towards May's Chequers deal in the European Parliament? And Dawn, you said, Diane, you must know what's being said behind the scenes over there about Theresa May and the Chequers fiasco. Please give us a clue. Well, let me give you some idea of what's being said over here. And I'm only citing effectively a straw poll of MEPs that I talked to, all of whom I have to say are Europhile. They want the Brexit reversed and such. And then also some idea of what some of the United Kingdom MEPs are doing and saying. And again, those are individuals who do not support the referendum result. They do not support leaving the European Union. Let's start off, though, with the fellow European ones. I think some of them, quite frankly, are absolutely delighted. Some of them are absolutely gleeful. Some of them are just laughing at us. Every committee, Constitution Committee I attend, the usual words, the fact that the United Kingdom negotiations are a shambles, that the Prime Minister couldn't handle anything, she's not directing anything, she can't even keep her party together, etc. And then if I cite some of the views of the Greens, the Labour, the Liberal Democrat MEP who represent the United Kingdom, they are siding with exactly that sort of sentiment. And I find it absolutely incredible that party politics from the United Kingdom transfers over here and portrays the United Kingdom in such a bad light. Now, I'm not expecting the Europhile Labour, the Greens, the SNP to suddenly come out and be absolutely Brexit supporting. But when I hear their language in committee meetings, when I hear their banter around here, and they are undermining the United Kingdom all the time, they're adding fuel, if you like, to the let's reverse Brexit, let's ensure that Brexit is a shambles, etc. When they're doing that, I think it's a really, really bad reflection on their attitude and to Brexit and their representation of the United Kingdom here in the European Parliament. I do think you have to really accept, though, how, if you like, energised the EU now is in terms of reversing Brexit. And I was in an AFCO, that's a Constitution Committee meeting last night. I've already made a YouTube recording, which I hope is going to be broadcast this week as well. And I'm highlighting some of the key points that came out of that. Now, there was a very, very experienced European Union lawyer there, and he launched what I called a real torpedo into the whole shenanigans going on by actually indicating and proposing and suggesting could realistically happen, which is the European Court of Justice, the ECJ, decides Brexit cannot happen. Now, can you just imagine what signal that's going to send when finally the control that I've always fought against as a Brexiteer, the control that people said they didn't want to see continue via the referendum vote, when we've even had a Prime Minister who supposedly said one of her red lines is not ECJ jurisdiction. If we actually find ourselves up against that sort of action by the ECJ, I'm going to just hang my head in shame at how the EU has treated a country that has rightfully taken a decision to leave. Now, Stephen Wood has said, Diane, do you feel Mr. Davis, that would be David Davis, is the right man to get us out of the European Union now on a effectively no deal? And do you think 2 years is too long to negotiate anymore? There's so much within your question, Stephen. One, currently, the Prime Minister is still Theresa May. She's made it abundantly clear that she's not prepared to stand down. She's also, I think, made it abundantly clear that she wouldn't allow a Leaver MP from the Tory party to assume her role as Prime Minister. And that regretfully rules out the likes of David Davis, Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Priti Patel, some of the key Brexiteers in the Tory party. Now, I really do hope things will change. I would like our Prime Minister to accept that the humiliation that she's just bringing on the United Kingdom, bringing upon herself, and bringing upon the whole Brexit negotiation scenario is just a step too far. And I'd like the Prime Minister to actually call it a day, to walk away, ideally, if it needs be, at the next Conservative Party conference, which is only days away, relinquish her role, go out with some degree of pride and head held high, but allow somebody with a lot more steel who hasn't had to endure the humiliation that she's had to via the European Union's stance. Now, Jerry Allen, you said, is the EU prepared for a no deal or WTO Brexit? Well, some countries are, Jerry. There's been quite a bit of press coverage, I think even in the United Kingdom, but certainly in the European press, that the Netherlands in particular is way ahead in terms of preparing itself for a no deal. Now remember, for the Netherlands, they've got a key port called Rotterdam. There's all sorts of trade that goes through there, either then onto the United Kingdom or that the United Kingdom sends to Rotterdam and then it goes elsewhere in the world. So this is a country that's really recognising what withdrawal from the EU actually means. And it's the freedom to strike trade deals, it's the freedom to actually design how trade is coordinated and organised on a global basis. And I think, the Netherlands needs a bit of a tick. Well done. You're thinking ahead, you've got it under control, you've got it underway, and you are thinking what I perceive might actually be the inevitable, which is a no-deal scenario. What I don't see, though, is anything similar coming from, say, France. And it's no surprise there in a way, because you've got their president, Macron, really defending the European Union pillars like freedom of movement, single market, customs unions and such. And actually, if the United Kingdom press is to be believed, leading the really absolutely steadfast refusal to give any concession whatsoever to the United Kingdom. As for other countries, very, very hard to tell. There are, if you like, some glimmers of hope, the likes of Hungary and Poland that seem to be being a bit more pragmatic about the state of Brexit negotiations, about a no-deal outcome. Italy a little along that way as well. But some of the smaller countries who've got so much more to lose if Brexit happens, I think they're adhering to the European Union line much, much more closely. I'm just going to add a little comment. For me, the European Union has always been a mechanism to export unemployment in European Union member states to the United Kingdom. We've got a much, much better record of generating jobs, of keeping those jobs, if you like, and really, really propelling companies forward. So many other member states just don't have that facility. They don't have that backbone. They've got a huge youth unemployment problem. And for them, sending them to the United Kingdom to take jobs that UK nationals might have has always been one of their goals. Now, Brenda Dewhurst, you said, why do the Remainers persist in telling us we did not understand the question when we voted leave? Every household in the land was sent a notice explaining exactly what the result would be if we had the temerity to leave. Brenda, thank you for reminding me. It was David Cameron's government leaflet. If you remember, every single household received it. It was so pro-Remain, it was so Remain biased, it was almost an embarrassment. And it outlined all sorts of aspects, supposedly, that were going to go wrong if we did leave. The cost of that leaflet was between £9 and £10 million. That was government trying to dictate, trying to direct voters, and thankfully so many more people took the opportunity to attend Brexit events, weighed up the evidence from both sides, and actually made, in my view, the right decision when it came to the ballot box. All I wish was that instead of the United Kingdom signing various treaties, be it Maastricht, Lisbon, whatever else, along the way, if we'd been given the chance to have a referendum much, much earlier, we could have got out long before it became as complicated, as complex, and quite frankly, in some areas, as ridiculous as it is, long before we're having to go through the shenanigans now. Now, Brian Christian, you said, are the EU willing to pay for our bit of the buildings we helped pay for, i.e. the European Union Parliament? And what about Strasbourg? I'll add to that. Well, Brian, there's been no mention of anything like that. I highlighted some months ago that what about having our share back of the European Investment Bank, for instance? What about, other areas where the United Kingdom has made a huge financial contribution? And quite frankly, if they want to play dirty, if they want to play mean, give us our share back, rightfully so. I think what's worse, though, Brian, is there was mention only a few months ago that the European Union wants to rebuild the European Parliament building here in Brussels. They want to do that with a contribution from the United Kingdom. Now, it burst into life as a story and it died very, very quickly, because you can imagine the response that that sort of news generated. But if further down the line, when the so-called divorce bill, which I don't think should happen at all, but when the divorce bill is finally announced, somebody, I hope, is going to be going through it forensically, looking at the fine print, to see that all-important paragraph that says we've still had to pay to rebuild, to renew, to, if you like, just bring forth a new European Union Parliament building as the showcase for all the MEPs here. Now, Gavin, you said, why should British people who have exercised their right to freedom of movement have their rights stripped away? No one at the moment, Gavin, is stripping those rights away. Prime Minister Theresa May has made an offer to the European Union guaranteeing the rights of 3 million plus European Union citizens who've exercised precisely that right and live, reside, some of them work, some of them don't, in the United Kingdom. The expectation was the European Union would reciprocate with exactly the same sort of offer for all of those United Kingdom citizens living in Europe, be it in France, Portugal, Spain, Italy. I'm not really interested where they live. I'm interested in their welfare going forward and their right to continue living in those countries with just the same sort of benefits, etc., that EU citizens are going to have in the United Kingdom. As I said in AFCO committee meeting last night, what's happened? Absolute silence from the EU. They will not give a deal. Now, if you want to blame anybody over this, you start blaming, please, the European Union, not our Prime Minister. She's already conceded for the 3 million plus EU citizens in the United Kingdom, in the British Isles. The expectation and the direct requirement now is for the European Union to guarantee, maybe it's your right, living wherever you do in Europe, but certainly the 1 million plus United Kingdom citizens who've exercised that same right. Fair is fair, and if the European Union doesn't want to play fair, don't blame the UK government in this instance. Now, Anthony Harms, you said, hello, Diane, can you say something helpful about Brexit, the future, or anything at all? Yes, I will, Brian. Sorry, Anthony. I'm going to say to you, look for your Leave Means Leave event as near as to your home as you possibly can. Promote it, if you can, to friends and relatives. Make sure a huge number of people are there supporting those events. These are two individuals, Richard Tice and John Longworth, supported by the likes of Nigel Farage, Kate Hoey, a Labour MP in London who is a Brexiteer. Leave Means Leave is really picking up what I call the battle for Brexit cudgel. And it needs people like you to actually support those events and start pushing back on the progress that the Remain camp has made in terms of undermining confidence in the whole Brexit issue. Steve Lloyd, you said, why is Mrs May not reasoning with the European Research Group? That's the group headed by Jacob Rees-Mogg in the Parliament. And why is she still flogging the dead horse of Chequers? Do I think the Labour Party, behind the scenes, have been promised large amounts of money to kill Brexit? I'm not convinced there's money here, Steve. This is all about Jeremy Corbyn, Labour's leader. I think he's a Brexiteer. He's in charge of a party that wants to actually reverse Brexit. That's what Labour wants. And the situation is one very clearly where, for Jeremy's own personal credibility, he wants to force a change of Prime Minister, another general election, and allow Labour to come in, at which point I think he will allow the Remainers in his party to, in some way or form, reverse Brexit. That's what I don't like about a general election being called again, but I can well see if a general election happens, it will be another straightforward choice between Brexit supporting parties and non-Brexit supporting parties. And one party that I used to be a member of, UKIP, I think they're going to do very well. I think they're going to be leading the charge on the whole Brexit situation. And I hope the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg, Boris Johnson, and people of that ilk in the Tory party will do their level best to make sure that Brexit happens. David Cox, you said, as France spent years blocking Britain's entry into the European Economic Community, why are they hell-bent on stopping us leaving? And were there any, if you like, people within at that time and also now who would actually stand up to France? That's how I've read your question. Macron, President Macron, is now filling the gap that Angela Merkel has, if you like, released. She's under a huge amount of domestic pressure. She may not survive as the German leader. Macron, ever the opportunist, senses an opportunity here to take the lead on defending the European Union concept. He wants to defend, if you like, the organisation that's nurtured him, that's gestated him into the role he now has as head of the French Republic. And it's payback time for him back to the European Union, back to the Commission, back to the Council, back to the whole edifice that the European Union represents. So I'm not in the least surprised that if you like, the role that he's taking, the leadership he's trying to show, and the way he's trying to pivot France above Germany in terms of defending the European Union. Now, Paul Shear, I am getting to the end of my questions, everyone, but I'm going to try and squeeze through a couple more. As Paul Stone, you said, as Theresa May's plan is not going to pass with enough votes and an election looks more and more likely, do you think she will step down in an election and let Boris lead the party? Paul, she might step down, but it's going to be over her dead body she allows Boris Johnson to take over. I think we all know how bad the feeling is that she has for him as an individual. And I really actually feel sorry for Boris Johnson. He's been another individual who's come under the sort of character assassination tactics that seem to be endemic in British politics. He may have his faults, but I think he's a very intelligent individual. I do think he's charismatic. And I do think he could have done a lot, and might still do a lot, for reinvigorating the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom. And the last question I'm going to take today, Paul Taylor, you said, do you think any party could leave the European Union, as it was voted for, and still meet the 6 checker points of the Labour Party have set out? I think it would be impossible. Is it Labour just trying to stop Brexit? Well, Paul, I think I've already answered it, but I'm going to end with the comment. There are only 2 political parties in the United Kingdom at the moment who believe in Brexit. One is 100% behind clean Brexit, and that is UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party. There is a cohort, thankfully, a cohort of Conservative Party MPs who also want clean Brexit. They understand what is at stake. They understand the issue of freedom from European control in every area of our lives. Lawmaking, trade, you name it, regulations, absolutely everything. Those are the only 2 parties worth backing at any election, be it a general election or a local election to drive home the message to our political establishment, we want Brexit, we're battling for Brexit, now make Brexit happen. Thanks for joining me in Brussels. Hope to speak to you and hear your questions again in the near future. Bye-bye.